Hi guys, it's Ben Heath from Lead Guru, and this video is going to be the ultimate Facebook lookalike audience tutorial. I'm going to show you exactly how to create lookalike audiences, all different types of lookalike audiences, how to set them up properly, how to get the most out of them, because Facebook lookalike audiences really are an amazing feature. It's one of the best things about Facebook advertising. When we're running Facebook ad campaigns for our clients, we're always using lookalike audiences, and they very consistently deliver the best results when it comes to cold audience targeting on Facebook. So if you're looking to get great results from Facebook, you absolutely want to be using lookalike audiences, and this video is going to show you how you do that and how to get the most out of them. Now, just quickly before I get into the steps, for those of you that aren't aware, thinking, what is a lookalike audience? A lookalike audience consists of a group of people that are very, very similar to another group of people. So I'll give you an example. So let's say, for example, you've got 1,000 people on an email list. You could upload that email list to Facebook, and that then becomes your source audience for your lookalike. You then create a lookalike audience based off that source audience, based off your email list. And what Facebook will do is they will work out who within your target location is most like the people on your email list. And this is a fantastic targeting option because the people that are very similar to people on your email list are highly likely to buy, become leads, etc., etc. Okay, and there are lots of different types of lookalike audiences, but you see the sort of thing I'm talking about. If you can advertise to people that are very similar to the people that you've already done business with, well, then your targeting is very, very accurate, and as a result, very, very effective. So, as I said, we use them all the time. You absolutely want to be using them in your Facebook ad campaigns, and this video is going to show you how to create them, how to get the most out of them. Okay, with that said, let's get into it. So, I'm in an example ad account right now. I'm in Ads Manager, and to create a lookalike audience or any sort of custom audience, you need to first click on these three little lines up here in Ads Manager, or if you see squares instead, there are various different formats. But what you want to do is you want to select audiences. And I said, your window might look slightly different, just make sure you find it. Okay, so now that we're in audiences, you can see there's various audiences that have been created. As I said, this is an example ad account for me to create these sorts of videos. Ignore all this stuff here. It's nothing you need to worry about right now. You may have things in there if you've played around with this before. You may have nothing. Either way is absolutely fine. Now, when I talk about different types of lookalike audiences, there are lookalike audience settings. I'm going to get to those a little bit later. But when I'm talking about types of lookalike audiences, what I'm referring to the different types of source audience. Okay. Now, if you create a lookalike audience based off of previous customers, that is very different to a lookalike audience based off people that have watched a video of yours on Facebook. Okay. The source audience contains very different people, which means the lookalike audience is going to contain different people, and the results that you get advertising to those different lookalike audiences are going to be quite different in a lot of cases. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create a number of different lookalike audiences, and I'm also going to rank them. Okay, so I'm going to start with what I feel are the most effective lookalike audiences, because as I said, not all lookalike audiences are created equal. A lookalike audience based off previous customers is usually much, much more effective than a lookalike audience based off of video viewers, because you want to target people that are very similar to people that have worked with you before and bought from you before, as opposed to someone who has just watched a video of yours on Facebook. Buying something from you is a much, much larger commitment and a much greater signifier that they're a good prospect and you want to advertise to people just like them. Okay, so with that said, let's get started. So what you want to do is you want to click Create Audience. And to create a lookalike, we first need to create a custom audience. So custom audiences, I've got a tutorial on custom audiences. I'll include that in the video description below. But it refers to basically groups of people that have interacted with your business before, that know you. So custom audiences can be things like an email list, website visitors, people who've interacted with you on Facebook, all sorts of different things. So let's assume that we're going to start with the most effective lookalike audience, and that's one based off of previous customers. So I'm going to go here and select customer list. Now, this process is fairly straightforward. You can see Facebook's just telling you here about the various identifiers that people are going to match. I'll explain more about that in a second. But you can just go ahead and click next. Now, depending on how your customer list is constructed, you may or may not have customer values. So for example, if you've got all your customers stored on an Excel document, for example, and one of the columns assigns a value, a sales value, this customer bought $400 worth, this customer bought $240 worth, that sort of thing. If that's the case, great. You can include that information in the list that you upload to Facebook, and Facebook will weight those that have spent more with you more heavily. Okay? Which is a really good thing, because not only do you want to advertise to a lookalike audience that contains people that are similar to your previous customers, But why not have that weighted towards the higher value customers and therefore the higher value prospects? It's an absolute no-brainer. But I appreciate not everyone's going to have that, so I'm going to select no. If you do select yes, all you need to do is let Facebook know when you upload your list which column is the value column. Fairly straightforward. So I'm going to click no and I'm going to click next. Now I need to upload the file, or I can select this option and simply copy and paste in data. And it really depends on your specific setup, how you've got your data in there. Okay, so I'm obviously not going to copy and paste in actual data into here, and I can't do that for privacy reasons. What I've actually done is I've just prepared a little CSV file that I'm going to upload to demonstrate. So this example email list, pop it in there. Then you just need to give your audience a name. So you can see it's automatically put it in as example email list. Technically this is supposed to be a customer list because that's the most effective Facebook lookalike audience. So I've gone with, I'll rename it example customer list. Then I click next. Now what you need to do is you need to map the identifiers. So you basically need to tell Facebook, okay, this column in this document refers to email addresses. This column refers to first name. This column refers to phone number. Now the most important identifier to match is email address, because that's what Facebook uses to basically correlate your what the data on your list with someone's actual Facebook account, because that's how they're going to be able to identify who that person is, both for retargeting in a custom audience sense, but also for then creating a lookalike audience from. Facebook basically needs to take your data in your email list and work out who is on there, which Facebook users are these people. So email address is the most common one, but the more identifiers you can match, the better. So you can see they've automatically mapped email, action needed here, so I could tell that there's Ben, so I could say that that's a first name. Okay, so, and if you, depending on how much information you have on your list, you want to go through all the identifiers and match as many as possible. The more you can match, the better chance Facebook has of working out who the particular person is. And the higher your match rate, the more people will be in your source audience, your custom audience, and that will make your lookalike audience that much more accurate. Okay, so now I'm just going to click upload and create. And that is something that Facebook is going to usually take, 20, 30 minutes to populate. If you've got a larger list, sometimes it would do it immediately. But for the time being, I'm going to move on and create a lookalike audience based off of the custom audience. So now I'm going to click create a lookalike. You see Facebook presents you with this window straight away. Customer list has information set loaded. So we've created the custom audience, created the source audience, and now we can select create a lookalike audience. And you can see that our source here, select your lookalike source, is example customer list. And now we're creating our lookalike, and lookalikes are very, very simple, really. The more challenging part is probably in creating the custom audience in the first place. But what we need to do is work out which locations we want to target, and then the size of the audience. So the locations is usually fairly straightforward. What countries do you advertise in? Okay, so for example, if I wanted to advertise in the United Kingdom, which is obviously where I'm based, then I could put that in there. If I wanted to target the US, I could enter that as an option, etc., etc. Now, one thing I'll quickly mention, because I get this question quite a lot, is if you're a local business, because Facebook wouldn't, for example, doesn't allow you to enter small locations like it does in an ad set level in a campaign at this level, but that's absolutely fine. You can create a, for example, countrywide lookalike audience across the UK, and then at the ad set level, add in your location targeting criteria, and then Facebook will only target people that are in this lookalike audience and also within your specific location. So let's say, if you were just wanting to advertise around a particular city, let's say Birmingham in the UK, for example, that's your area of operation, that's where you want to advertise, but you want to take advantage of a lookalike audience, that's how you do it. You create your lookalike audience nationwide, and then at the ad set level, you get more specific with your location targeting, and it acts as an and function. People targeted need to be in your lookalike audience and within that target location, okay? Then you need to select your audience size. Now, this will depend on where you're advertising. So for most businesses getting started in a country like the UK, a 1% is absolutely fine, because 1% refers to the 1% of Facebook users in this country that are most like my source audience. So for example, we've uploaded an example customer list. Who are the 1% of Facebook users in the UK that are most similar to the people on my example customer list? Okay, does that make sense? So a lookalike audience in the UK, a 1% lookalike audience, will always have about 450,000 people because there are roughly 45 million Facebook users in the UK. In the US, there's about 250 million Facebook and Instagram users in the US. Therefore, a 1% lookalike audience is going to contain about 2.5 million people. So the percentage that you select very much depends on the size of the location in which you're advertising. So in a country like the UK, 450 for most businesses is absolutely large enough to get started. For most businesses in the US, a 1% lookalike audience is absolutely fine as well. You can go with 2.5 million, not a problem. If you're advertising to a country with a much smaller population, so let's say like New Zealand or Ireland or something, then you're going to want a larger percentage lookalike because you want your audience to be larger. Likewise, if you're going to be advertising on a localized basis, so let's say, go back to my example of the area around Birmingham, it would be very important to not select 1%, but to go with something closer to 10%, because if it's 4.5 million across the entire country, when I then get really specific and just go with the Birmingham area, that might come down to 500,000, for example. Okay, so local audiences or smaller countries, you want a larger percentage. Otherwise, getting started with something like a 1% is absolutely fine. I've actually created a whole video about Facebook audience size. So I'll include a link to that in the video description below. So if you're wondering how big should my audiences be, etc., I'd recommend checking that out. That will clear up a lot of things for you. But as I said, for most people, absolutely fine with a 1% in most countries. Okay, let's go ahead and click Create Lookalike. And it's telling us that our source audience is too small. You need to have at least 100 people in the same country. And I knew it was going to do that, and I wanted that to come up because that's an important thing for you to be aware of when you are creating Facebook lookalike audiences. Now, we just created a dummy list with one person in, so this clearly isn't going to work. And in order to create a lookalike audience, as Facebook is saying here, you need a source audience, so your base, your customer list, etc., needs to have at least 100 people in it in the same country. So let's say you're getting started, a lookalike audience based off of previous customers is probably not something you can use right now, and that's okay. Everyone has to start without that, obviously, but once you have 100 customers, definitely come in and create this lookalike audience. And I'm going to show you in a minute, there are other lookalike audiences on Facebook that you'll be able to use quicker because you rack up 100 in one individual country a lot faster than purchasers, okay? But I'm going to close this down because Facebook is not going to let me do it with that example customer list. But all you would do is just click create audience and then your audience is ready. Right, let's also take a look at a few other types of lookalike audiences. So we've started with, so remember, to create a lookalike, you first need to create a custom audience. So click create audience, custom audience. And we've already added in a customer list. Now, I used customer list there, but you could also use an email list. So let's say, for example, you only have 50 people on a customer list, 50 people have actually bought, but you might have 500 on an email list. People have just opted in for a lead magnet or something like that. Well, you can't create a lookalike audience yet from your customer list. Therefore, you're going to have to create a lookalike audience from your email list for the time being. The steps to do that are exactly what I just demonstrated. It's exactly the same process. So you just click customer list, but instead of uploading a list of customers, you just upload a list of email subscribers in the exact same manner that I just did. Okay, and all the email providers, things like MailChimp, by the way, you can just export a CSV to then be able to upload straight into Facebook. In fact, MailChimp have a direct link, so it's even easier. But if you're using something else, then you can set that up very quickly and easily. So that's basically one category. You've got customer list, email list, and then we're going to move on to some others. And by the way, that's how I would rank them. So the absolute best performing lookalike audience is one based off previous customers. The next one down, so number 2 in terms of results, is a lookalike audience based off of people on your email list. And then number 3 is a lookalike audience based off of website visitors. That's the next one I go to. And how do you create one of those? So obviously when you come into create a custom audience, you want to select website. Now, in order to be able to do this, you will need to have the Facebook pixel installed on your website. So I'll include a link in the video description below to another video that shows you exactly how to install the Facebook pixel on your website. Make sure all of that is set up. But provided it is, and people are visiting your website and Facebook's tracking it, you can create lookalike audiences based off people that have visited your website, which is, again, a pretty good lookalike audience to create. Not as good as off previous customers, because someone who visits your website isn't as good a prospect as someone who has bought from you. Therefore, advertising to people that are similar to them isn't as good as advertising to people that are similar to people who have bought from you. But it's still a pretty good audience to start with, okay? So there are lots of things you can do very specifically with website visitors for creating lookalike audiences. So I'm going to start with the most simple. So One thing I would recommend you start with, particularly if you're getting started with this, you don't have tons of website traffic, is just create the largest source audience possible, right? So you want to go ahead and select all website visitors in the last 180 days, okay? That's going to give you the largest source audience. And remember, where possible, the larger the source audience, the better. Because a larger source audience gives Facebook more data with which to create a very accurate lookalike audience. So for example, let's say we've got 300 website visitors versus 10,000 website visitors. We create a lookalike audience based off of each group's chunks of those people. The 10,000 is going to be a better performing source for a lookalike audience because Facebook just has a lot more data and they can draw conclusions and work out, aha, that type of person really likes this stuff. Let's find people like that, okay? So because of that, it's also good to be aware that lookalike audiences improve over time. So the more people you add to your source audience, the better your lookalike audience will perform. So for most people getting started, I would recommend keeping it simple and going with all website visitors in the last 180 days. But you can be more specific. So if, for example, you had different product ranges on your website, well, one thing you could do is you could select people who visited specific web pages and you could enter in something specific. So for example, I could pop in, my URL, which is my website, leadguru.co.uk, and I could pop in something like SEO, okay? Because we now offer SEO services as a business. So perhaps I just wanted to create a custom audience of people who visited the SEO related web pages on our website, and I wanted to create a lookalike audience out of those people because I want to specifically advertise SEO services as opposed to our Facebook advertising services. So if you want to get more segmented, you can absolutely do it. When you select people who visited specific web pages, just be careful with this URL here. So I've done URL contain. So for example, I could literally just use SEO, and that will then include anyone that visits a page on a website that includes the word SEO. You can also do URL equals if I wanted to put in a specific URL to a specific page or a range of pages, okay? But for what I've just described, contains and SEO will work absolutely fine. Now, there are other things you can do here. You can include more people, exclude people. So for example, you can include people that have purchased, exclude people that have done other things, perhaps visited your website a bunch but not done anything. You can get very, very creative with that. I'm not gonna get too bogged down in that for the purposes of this video because it's all about lookalike audiences. That is covered in my custom audiences tutorial, which is going to be in the video description, as I've already mentioned, so check that out. So let's go back. So you could get more specific if we wanted to just advertise SEO, as I mentioned, and there'll be lots of businesses that tick this sort of box, I'm sure. But let's say I just wanted to go with all website visitors because that's what I'd recommend starting with. So I'm going to go ahead and call this something like all website visitors 180. Okay, I want to keep it very simple, know exactly what this is. And then I'm going to click Create Audience. And you'll see that the same window will come up. So I can then click Create a Lookalike. I can enter in my source audience here. Now, this is a good thing to demonstrate. Facebook have not automatically entered in the name of my source audience in there. Okay, so I'm going to need to type it in. When I do so, I go to type in all website visitors, you will see that Facebook has value-based sources and other sources. Value-based sources is what I mentioned previously, whereby you're creating a custom audience where the people in that custom audience are assigned a value. So like the customer list where there's a column for sales per customer, sales value per customer. Most of the time, that's not going to be the case. You need to select other sources. And then you can see I've got here, all website visitors, 180. I've obviously created this previously as a demonstration, but you can see it there, all website visitors 180. So I've popped that in specifically because Facebook didn't automatically upload it, okay? Then countries or regions is exactly the same, but let's just, let's go ahead and make this one in the US. And then we've got our 1%. You can see, 2.4 million in the US. Then I'm going to click Create Audience. And there we go. Now you can see over here that Facebook is populating my custom audience, so this all website visitors 180, and then it's also populating the lookalike audience that's based off of that source audience. So as I said, that's going to take 20 to 30 minutes, something along those lines, but is, absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. Just come back when you're ready and go ahead. So that's another type of lookalike audience, website visitors, and there's all sorts of things you can create off that. Now, in terms of using lookalike audiences to get great results, those three are the ones that we use the vast majority of the time. Lookalike audience based off of previous customers, lookalike audience based off of an email list, and lookalike audience based off of website visitors. Now, there are lookalike audiences that you can create aside from those three that will work reasonably well and are good to get started with if you don't have any previous customers, anyone on your email list, or any website visitors. So I'm going to show you how to do those. So again, same process, create lookalike audience, create audience, custom audience. And we've already dealt with these two, right? We've done customer list and website. And there's lots of things you can do within those two, but we've sort of covered them broadly. Now, there are lots of different options here. I'm going to focus on the most commonly used because that's going to be most useful for most people. Video is one that's very commonly used. So if I select video, I can now create a custom audience based on people that have viewed a video of mine. So I could, for example, let's go through the steps. So the first thing you need to do is select engagement, okay? You can create a custom audience of people who have watched 3 seconds of your video or more, 10 seconds, or these higher percentages, people who've watched at least 95%. Now, the way you need to work this out is that audience here, people who have viewed at least 3 seconds, if you've been running a video ad or something like that, is going to be the largest audience by far, much larger than these other ones because, loads of people will have watched 3 seconds of your video. But the negative to that is that just because someone's watched 3 seconds of your video doesn't mean that they're a good prospect and doesn't mean that you should create lookalike audiences based off of that prospect or those prospects, because it doesn't mean they're interested in your stuff. 95% is going to be the complete opposite. Those people are really into your stuff. They are much better prospects with which to create a lookalike audience from, but that audience is going to be much, much smaller, and you're probably going to need to run a video ad longer to be able to use that as a targeting option. If you are wanting to get started with video, which is not an option I use a huge amount, but one to get started with if you're getting started, I think about 25% is the sweet spot. Then you want to go and select choose videos, and then simply scroll through your videos and select one that meets the criteria. You can even select them all. You can go through and select every single video and be like, I want this source audience to contain people that have watched any of my videos, perhaps specific ones. So for example, I could be like, I want anyone who's watched more than 25% of that video is probably really interested in my stuff. Therefore, I'm going to use that one only. These are all untitled videos because they're lives that I've done in my Facebook group in case you were interested. Okay, so I've selected that one. But as I said, you could select one video, lots of videos, it's up to you. Then you need to choose how far into the past this works. So is it people that have watched within the last 30 days, within the last 365 days, etc., etc. When it comes to creating custom audiences that are then going to be used as source audiences to create lookalike audiences, I'm a big fan of making the audiences as large as possible because that gives Facebook more data with which to create a more accurate lookalike. So 365 is the maximum, and that's what I'm going to use. So I could have, for example, here I could have video viewers 365. Okay, something very, very simple like that. And then click create audience. And then you will see that the exact same process happens. So it says it's going to take 30 minutes, no problem. And they've actually given me a slightly different window here, which is quite useful and quite interesting. But to create the lookalike audience now, you want to select expand your audience. And you can see we've been presented with the exact same options. Okay, so we've got video viewers is our source for our lookalike. We want to target the United States. 1% is absolutely fine. And we click create audience. Okay, so that's how you do it with video viewers. I'm sure you can sort of think through the applications so you can see those are populating. A couple of other options. One is if you click create audience and custom audience, is to do it based off of people who have interacted with you on either Facebook or Instagram. So these are very, very similar. I'll show you Instagram quickly. So let's say that you've got a good Instagram following, okay? You think that would be a good source audience with which to create a lookalike. This would be particularly effective if you were advertising a lot on Instagram. Well, you come into this window here, and then again, you've got some various different options. So you can have people that have visited your profile, people who've engaged with a post or ad, etc., etc. Again, same as before, when it comes to creating a source audience for a lookalike, I like my custom audiences to be as large as possible. Therefore, I would recommend starting with anyone who engaged with your business as the source for your lookalike. If you have tons of Instagram followers, yes, you could select one of the other options, but that's what I get started with. And then again, into the past, I'm going to go 365 days. Okay, so fairly straightforward. Then I just need to name this audience. So I could call this probably Instagram engagers. 365, create audience, and then you can see create a lookalike, exactly the same, and let's do exactly the same and keep everything consistent so it all makes sense. Okay? And by the way, what I just showed you is exactly the same with a Facebook page engaged as well. So I did Instagram business profile and Facebook page. If I select Facebook page, look, it's exactly the same options that you've got here. Okay? I mean, there's a few more options down here because the platform's slightly different, but it works exactly the same. Okay? So I'm just going to click back off there. So those are two options. You can create custom audiences based on people who've engaged with you on Facebook, create custom audiences based on people who've engaged with you on Instagram, and then use those to create lookalike audiences. Again, not something that we use a lot. Video viewers based lookalike audiences and the Instagram and Facebook engagers based lookalike audiences are definitely in a sort of second tranche below our top tier, which is lookalikes based off of customer list, lookalikes based off of email address, and lookalike based off of website visitors. So be aware this is the next run down, but as I've already said, if you don't have previous customers, if you don't have an email list, if you don't have much website visitors, but you have been doing some stuff on Facebook and Instagram, advertising videos, then this is a really good option to use and potentially focus on. So the last type of Facebook lookalike audience that I'm going to show you how to create in this video is one based off of lead forms. So if I go ahead and select this option here. So if you're running a lead generation campaign, and a lead generation campaign is simply a Facebook advertising campaign whereby when someone clicks on the ad, instead of being taken through to your website or your landing page, they are kept on Facebook and they can enter in their details via a form on Facebook, become a lead, and then you can follow up with them as a business. Now, obviously, with that campaign structure, people are going to interact with your lead form. They're going to open it, they're going to submit it, and you may want to create a custom audience out of people that have taken those actions and then create a lookalike audience based off of those people. Okay, so if you're running lead generation campaigns, this is a great option to use, a great way to create lookalike audiences based off people who have taken the action you want people to take, and that's therefore going to help you with your future marketing efforts. Okay, so just like with the other types of custom audiences that we've created, there are various options here. Now, the default is anyone who opened this form, so that would refer to anyone who has clicked on the ad, the form has come up, but they didn't necessarily do anything with it. You can be more specific and go with people who opened but didn't submit, which is not what we'd want in this scenario. Why would we want to target people that are very similar to people who didn't submit the lead form? That doesn't make sense. But you can select here people who opened and submitted form. Now, if you're going to go with this option as a source audience for a lookalike, this is the option that I would select. Because yes, you get a larger audience by selecting anyone who opened this form, but with the people who opened and submitted form option, you're only including people in this source audience that have actually become a lead on Facebook. And targeting people that are very similar to people that have become a lead, so basically a lookalike audience based off of this audience, is a fantastic audience to target. And that's one of the reasons why we will use this if we are running lead generation campaigns that use lead forms as part of our Facebook advertising strategy for a client. So we're going to use the three in the top tier that I already mentioned, and this one from time to time, depending on the types of campaigns that we're running for a particular business. Okay, so we're going to create this custom audience out of people who opened and submitted the form in the past 90 days, which is the maximum Facebook will allow you. Unfortunately, I would like to be able to use 180 or 365, but for privacy reasons, they've capped that at 90. Nothing we can do. But you do want to use the maximum time period, particularly when selecting this option, people who opened and submitted the form, because as I've already mentioned, that's a great base, a great source audience with which to create a lookalike. Then you need to select the specific forms that you want to use. So whatever it is that you've created, when you create a lead form as part of a lead generation campaign, you need to give that form a name. I think we've got some example ones created in this account. So if I select and click in, Facebook ads, free Facebook ads for 2 weeks, service providers, something we experimented with at some point, no doubt. Definitely not something we're running, by the way, guys, now, if you're interested. So that anyone who interacted with that lead form, fantastic. Now we want to call this something like lead form submitters, 90, keep things consistent, capital elephant. Something like lead form submitters, create audience, and that's creating the custom audience. It's going to be our source for us to now create a lookalike audience. And we're going to do the exact same as we have done before. So let's go with the US, let's target a 1%, and let's click create audience. Fantastic. And as you can see, all those are still populating as we would expect. So that's how you go about creating the custom audiences and then the lookalike audiences based off of those custom audiences within the audiences tab. A very important part of Facebook advertising, of targeting. As I said, lookalike audiences deliver the best results. I'm just going to very quickly now show you how you go about actually targeting these lookalike audiences at the ad set level. So just click on this little sort of matrix of buttons here, and we want to jump back into Ads Manager. Okay, so we're back now in our example ad account. We've actually got an example campaign set up, so why not go into that, click into that. Let's create a new ad set. So I'm just going to very quickly pop in a new ad set in here. New example ad set. In fact, why don't we call this new lookalike ad set? And then let's click Save to Draft. And then in order to actually target your lookalike audience, you want to scroll down. Don't worry about all the other settings. I've got tons of videos on all of those. If you're interested in any individual part of the Facebook ad campaign, like conversion events, where are we? Conversion events or optimization for ad delivery, just literally search for those in YouTube in my name and you will find a video on those. I want to scroll down to this section here. So it's under the custom audiences section. I know it's a bit confusing because custom audiences are technically your warm audiences and then you create lookalike audiences from those. But that's how Facebook do it. So you would then want to pop in one of your lookalike audiences. So you can see we've got you can actually see lookalike audience, custom audience. And let's say we wanted to target that last one we talked about, the lead form submitters that we just created in the last 190 days. Remember, it's not those people, it's a lookalike audience based off of those people, okay? Very important to be aware of that. You can see the potential reach on this side, by the way, is fewer than 1,000. That's just because it hasn't populated yet. Once it's populated, that'll have a lot more and we'll be able to run the campaign. I would wait, just out of interest, to run the campaign. If your audience is still populating, make sure it populates first. Otherwise, your results are likely to be poor or the campaign just simply won't run. In terms of other targeting options, now obviously this is a US-based lookalike, so we need to be targeting the US, so that's very important. So let's make sure I put in the right country in here. Wrong click. So we want to put in the United States in there. Okay. But other than that, I would leave all these other targeting options completely open. So I wouldn't set any age, gender, and definitely no interest targeting options or any detailed targeting options. Anything else you add in here, the way it works is it'll narrow down your lookalike audience. And you just don't need it. The whole point of a lookalike audience is you want to target people that are very similar to other groups of people, like your previous customers. If you go and say, for example, I only want to target people that are 40 to 60, well, you could miss out on some 38-year-olds that are very similar in very other ways to your ideal prospect, and you don't want to miss out on those people. So the lookalike audience will handle all this stuff for you. If you were to go in and add any detailed targeting, like interests or anything like that, again, it's going to act like an and function. So people have to be in the lookalike and they have to be in that interest targeting option, and you can bring your audience size down way too small. I get quite a lot of comments from people saying, I tried running a lookalike, but nothing happened. It didn't deliver. It didn't get any impressions. And that's usually because they've added a lookalike and they've also added an interest targeting option, and that's just made the audience too small because it's an and function, okay? Or even, multiple interest targetings and things like that, which is just really going to hurt. The only thing obviously you want to do is make sure you've got the right target location. So as we've already said, if you want to advertise on a local basis, let's go back to my previous example of Birmingham here in the UK. Birmingham, England, 25 miles. Obviously, if that's your area of operation, then that's where you want to advertise. Like, don't advertise to the whole country if you only operate on a local basis. But just be aware that because we've narrowed this down significantly to just this size, this area, you're going to want a higher percentage lookalike audience to start with, because that's going to bring your overall audience size down. So usually when we're advertising for a local business and we are using lookalike audiences, we're usually going to go with the maximum of 10%. That's quite important. That won't be the case if you're advertising in a local area, but the population is still really big, like if we're advertising in LA or London, for example. Well, those are such big areas, so many people in those areas that we can get away with, let's say, a 5% lookalike or something like that. Okay. But yeah, make sure you give lookalike audiences a go, guys. They really are very, very powerful, very, very effective. We use them all the time. Go through them in terms of the tiers that I mentioned. You start with a lookalike based on previous customers. then a lookalike based on your email list, then a lookalike based on your website visitors, a lookalike based on lead form submitters, lookalike based on video viewers, lookalike based on Instagram engagers, lookalike based on Facebook page engagers. Okay, work your way through the list. What's the highest one you have available? Start there. If you don't have previous customers, fine, email list. Don't have an email list, website listers, etc., etc. Hopefully you understand how that works. And when it comes to targeting in your ad set, make sure you only include one lookalike audience per ad set. Don't include 3 different types of lookalike audiences, because that gets very confusing when you're analyzing your data. You know, was it the lookalike audience based off my email list or my website visitors that delivered these great results? If you separate them out into separate ad sets, then you're likely to see much clearer data, which will help you with future optimization decisions and better enable you to optimize your campaigns and make adjustments which make a big difference to Facebook advertising. So hopefully that has been useful. Before you go, I just want to quickly talk about our Facebook advertising services. So if you are running Facebook ad campaigns, Instagram ad campaigns yourself, and you would like to work with a professional agency, have a company like mine handle it for you, we'd almost certainly be able to help you get much better results. And we can completely take it off your hands. So we offer done for you Facebook and Instagram advertising services. We can create the campaigns, manage them, optimize them, write the ad copy, create the images, edit videos, all that sort of stuff. Everything that's required on Facebook and Instagram to get you the best results possible. Now, the starting point to work with us is $3,000 per month. That's what your overall budget needs to be to work with us. And if you meet that criteria, I'd love to have a very no obligation, very relaxed conversation with you. And you can book a free 30-minute strategy session. Just click on the link in the video description below. It'll be right at the bottom of the video description. So click on that, book. You can book directly into my calendar. And I said, we can just have no obligation at all. We can just have an informal chat to find out. I can find out more about your business and see if we might be able to help. We may have worked with a company similar to yours in the past. And you can find out more about our services, what we charge, how it all works, etc., etc. So if you are interested in that and you spending or want to spend more than $3K a month on Facebook and Instagram ads, then hopefully we speak. If not, want to wish you the best of luck with your Facebook advertising. Quick ask from me, if you enjoyed this video and found it useful, it helps me a lot. If you could give it a thumbs up, you could like it. If you could comment below to let me know. And of course, share it, tell a friend, that's always useful. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You know, I release Facebook advertising related content like this multiple times per week. So if you don't want to miss out on that, subscribe, turn on notifications, click the little bell when you do so that you are notified whenever I publish new videos. And yeah, I will talk to you guys soon. Best of luck with everything and bye for now.